Okay, by the end of this, our goal is for you to be able to solve a two-step equation. To start off a bit easier, we're going to go ahead and cover one-step equations. Now, the goal of solving an equation is to find the value of x. So if you quickly look at our examples here, we have a variable, so m, g, y, and a. We're trying to find the value of that variable so these equations are true. So towards the end of this, these should all be x equals some sort of number. So before we get into that though, for solving one-step equation, it's very important that you understand how to undo an operation. So if you want to undo addition, so for instance, if you wanted to undo adding 12, you would subtract. If you wanted to undo subtraction, the opposite would be to add. If you wanted to undo multiplication, the opposite would be division. And if you wanted to undo division, the opposite would be to multiply. So it's important that you understand how to cancel that out. So one-step equations, our goal is finding the value of our variable. So for number 1, I have 12 equals 10. So we're going to start off by drawing a line through our equal sign. So here, we want to first see what is being added or subtracted to 12 and to our variable, and we want to do the opposite of that. So right now I have 12 being added, so that means I'm going to do the opposite and I'm going to subtract 12. Now what you do to one side of our line, you have to do to the other. So what you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. Kind of think of it like as a mirror. So here this cancels out. We're left with m equals 10 minus 12, which is negative 2. So here m equals negative 2. Okay, then we have number 2. We have negative 7y equals 91. So here I'm going to draw a line down the middle. So right now I do not have anything being added or subtracted to my variable, but my variable is being multiplied by negative 7. Whenever you have a coefficient and a variable together, they are being multiplied. So here to undo multiplication, it says we do division. So I'm going to divide negative 7 on both sides. So here this cancels out. I'm left with y equals negative 91 divided by negative 7. So putting that in your calculator, control divide, negative 9 d on top, and then negative 7 on the bottom. We get a positive 13. So here y equals 13. Now, if you wanted to check your answer, anytime you see y, you would put in for 13, and we want to make sure that this equation, or the value for y, is true. So here, negative 7 times 13, and this should equal negative 91. Pressing enter, we see that this is true, so y equals 13 is our answer for 2. Then we have number 3. Again, go ahead and draw a line through your equal sign. And we want to see what is being added or subtracted to our variable. So right now I have 9 being subtracted to my variable. So to cancel this out, I want to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So here, negative plus 9 in your calculator is a positive 7. So here, 7 equals g, and negative 9 plus 9 cancels out. So here it's not wrong if you do 7 equals g, but it's more proper to put your variable first and then this equals your number. So g equals 7. Okay, so for number 4 we have a over 9 equals negative 4. So here our variable is being divided by 9. So to undo division, we have to multiply. So here we're going to multiply by our denominator on both sides. We're going to multiply by 9. That cancels out. I'm left with a equals negative 4 times 9, which is negative 36. So here a equals negative 36. So again, if you wanted to check this in your calculator, go ahead and press Control Divide. Negative 36 is what we found for the value of a. Dividing this by 9 should equal negative 4. When we press Enter, this is true. So here, negative 36 is our answer. Okay, so that's solving one-step equations. But when we're dealing with fractions in front of our variable as our coefficient, to get rid of a fraction, we will multiply by the reciprocal. Now, if you've ever heard the term reciprocal, right now I have 2 over 3. So this is my numerator over my denominator. So when I multiply by my reciprocal, I'm going to flip this. So this is now 3 divided by 2. So this is my denominator over my numerator. So looking at a few examples, we have number 5. We have 2 over 3x equals 10. So to get rid of my fraction, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 3 over 2 on both sides. Because remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So here this cancels out. I'm left with x equals, and then my answer is going to be 10 times, control divide, 3 on top, 2 on the bottom. And here we get x equals 15. Now, if we wanted to check our answer, we're going to substitute x for what we found as 15. So we have control divide, 2 on top, 3 on the bottom, and we want to multiply this by our x value of 15, and this should equal 10. When we press enter, this returns true, so x equals 15 is, in fact, our answer. Okay? Then we have number 6, 4 over 9w equals negative 8. So again, we want to multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 9 over 4. Again, we're just flipping this. So we're going to do this on both sides. So here this cancels out. We're left with w equals, and then we have negative 8 times, control divide, 9 on top, 4 on the bottom. Multiplying by a reciprocal, we get w equals negative 18. So the value of w is negative 18. Going ahead and checking this, we have control divide, 4 on top, 9 on the bottom. We want to multiply this by negative 18. Stepping out of my parentheses, this should equal a negative 8. If it returns true, that's my answer, and if it's false, we did something wrong. So returning true, w equals negative 18 is my answer. Okay, now we have some negative fractions, which is okay. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of negative 6 over 5, which is negative 5 over 6 on both sides. Because remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So here this cancels out. I'm left with k equals 12 times, control divide, negative 5 on top, and then 6 on the bottom. So 12 times negative 5 over 6, we get negative 10. So k equals negative 10. So checking this, we have control divide, negative 6 on top, times 5. And in parentheses, so our value for k we found was negative 10. And this should equal a positive 12. So here this returns true. So k equals negative 10 is my answer. Okay, next we have 1/2 m equals negative 9. So here, the reciprocal of negative 1/2 is going to be negative 2 over 1. But we know that if you have a denominator of 1, your number is just your numerator. So here, we're just multiplying by negative 2 on both sides. So here, when I multiply by negative 2, these cancel out. I'm left with a positive 1m equals negative 9 times a negative 2, which is a positive 18. So here, m equals 18. So to check our answer here, we are going to take negative, control divide, 1/2, and then we want to multiply this by 18, and this should equal negative 9. And here it returns true, so m equals 18 is my answer. Now, the reason why we multiplied by the reciprocal here is to go ahead and cancel out the fraction, just in case that wasn't clear. Okay, so now that we know how to solve one-step equations, we're going to move on to two-step equations. So here when we're solving two-step equations, step 1 is to add or subtract our constant, and then step 2 is to multiply or divide by our coefficient. Now, what does this all mean? So looking at this example, 2x plus 5 equals 13. 2 will be our coefficient, the number in front of x, so is 2. Our variable is the letter, so our variable here is x. And then 5 will be our constant. That's what we're adding to our term, our variable. So let's go ahead and look at our example. So number 9, I have 6m plus 8 equals 50. So I want you to first start off by drawing a line through your equal sign. So step 1 says add or subtract your constant. So here I have 8 as my constant, and it is being added to my variable. So I want to undo addition, which means I have to subtract it. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So here this cancels out. I'm left with 6m equals 50 minus 8, which is 42. So now we want to multiply or divide by our coefficient. So if our variable is being multiplied, we would divide. If it was a fraction and it was being divided, we would multiply. So here I have 6 times m equals 42. So I'm going to divide by the coefficient of 6. This cancels out, and I'm left with m equals 7. Now, if we wanted to check this in your calculator, to check your work, you would put 6, and everywhere you see an m, you'd put a 7. So 6 times 7 plus 8 should equal 50. So here this returns true, so m equals 7 is my answer. Okay, then we have number 10. So again, draw a line through your equal sign. Our first step is to either add or subtract our constant. So right now my constant is being subtracted, so we want to do the opposite, and we will add 5 to both. So here this cancels out. I'm left with 2n equals 11 plus 5, which is 16. So now we want to multiply or divide by our coefficient. So right now my variable is being multiplied by 2. Its coefficient is 2. So we're going to divide by 2 on both sides. So here this cancels out. I'm left with n equals 8. So making sure this is correct, we have 2 in parentheses 8 minus 5 equals 11. Pressing enter, this returns true. So n equals 8 is definitely my answer. So number 11, we have c divided by negative 5 plus 8 equals 11. So your first step is to add or subtract your constant. So my constant is an 8. It is being added. So that means we have to subtract it. And remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this cancels out. I'm going to bring this down. So c divided by negative 5 equals 11 minus 8, which is 3. So now we need to either multiply or divide by our coefficient. Or multiply or divide my variable. So right now my variable is being divided by negative 5, and so to cancel this out, to undo this, you multiply negative 5 on both sides. Remember, what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. So here my negative 5's cancel out. I'm left with c equals 3 times negative 5, which is a negative 15. So checking our answer, control divide, negative 15 on top, negative 5 on the bottom. And we want to add 8, and this should equal 11. So pressing enter, this does return true, is correct. Number 12, we have 3 over 5x plus 22 equals 28. So we do see that we have a fraction in front of our variable, so we do know we're going to need to use a reciprocal. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and deal with our constant. So right now my constant is being added, so I want to do the opposite and I want to subtract it. Now remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this cancels out. I'm left with 3 over 5x equals 28 minus 22, which is a positive 6. So now we want to get rid of our fraction, and so in order to get rid of it, we want to multiply by its reciprocal. That'll cancel it out. So right now my fraction is 3 over 5, so to cancel that out, I'm going to use the reciprocal, which again is just flipping it. And we're going to multiply by 5 over 3 on both sides. So here my fractions cancel out. I'm left with x equals, and then we have 6 times, control divide, 5 on top, 3 on the bottom, and we get a positive 10. So here x equals 10. So checking this in your calculator, we have control divide, 3 on top, 5 on the bottom. And for our value of x, we found it to be 10. So here, in parentheses, we have a 10 for x. And when we add 22 to this, this should equal 28. Pressing enter, this does return true, so here x does equal 10. So now there's a few special cases that we need to watch out for, because it's different because multiplication needs to be done first. And that is because everything is divided by 8. So to undo division, we have to multiply. So here we're going to multiply by 8 on both sides. So multiplying by 8 sides undoes this division. So here my 8's cancel out. I'm left with x plus 11. And this equals negative 3 times 8, which is a negative 24. So now we can follow our steps for two-step equations. So we want to add or subtract our constant. Right now, my constant is being added. So 11 is being added, and I want to undo it. I want to move it over to the other side. So that means I have to subtract it from both sides. So here this cancels out. I'm left with x equals negative 24 minus 11 is negative 35. So x equals negative 35. So again, if we wanted to check our answer, control divide. Negative 35 plus 11 over 8 is my fraction, and this should equal negative. Pressing enter, this does return true, so x equals 35 is my answer. Okay, next we have 14. So again, before I can move anything over, I have to take care of this fraction because everything is over that fraction. So I'm going to multiply by the denominator on both sides. This cancels out. I'm left with n minus 5 equals negative 7 times a negative 2, which is a positive 14. So now we have to take care of our constant. So right now our constant is being subtracted, and I want to do the opposite of that. I want to undo it. So I'm going to add it to both sides. So this cancels out. I'm left with n equals 14 plus 5, which is 19. Okay, so to check our answer, we're going to press control divide. Anywhere we see an n, we're going to substitute with 19. So 19 minus 5 on top, negative 2 on the bottom, and this should equal negative 7. Pressing enter, this does return true, so n equals 19 is my answer. Number 15, we have 1 equals a minus 13 divided by negative 6. So again, I need to take care of this fraction before I can move anything over. So in the denominator, I have negative 6. So in order to cancel this out, I'm going to multiply by negative 6 on both sides. So negative 6 times a positive 1 is negative 6. And this equals a minus 13 over negative 6, which these negatives canceled out. And we can bring down a minus 13. Okay, so now we want to add or subtract our constant. Right now my constant is being subtracted, so that means I'm going to add it to both sides. So here, negative 6 plus 13 is a positive 7. So here, 7 equals a. But it's more proper to write it as your variable equals your number. So here, a equals 7. It's not wrong if you leave it as 7 equals a, but I would suggest you get in the habit of putting your variable equaling your number. Okay, last one, number 16. We have 4 equals w plus 8 divided by 9. Now again, before you can move anything over, you have to take care of this multiplication. This division. So we're going to multiply by our denominator of 9 on both sides. This cancels out. 9 times 4 equals 36. And 36 equals, since this canceled out, we're left with w plus 8. Okay, so we have 36 equals w plus 8. Remember, this 9 cancels this out. So now we want to see what is being added or subtracted to our variables. So here we have 8, our constant, being added. So to cancel it out and move it over, we want to subtract this. And remember, what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So 36 minus 8, you will get a positive 28. And here, 28 equals w. So we have to go ahead and check this in our calculators. So here we have 4 equals, and then we're going to press control divide, and we have w, which we found was 28, plus 8, and when we divide that by 9, it should equal 4, and it does return true. So here, w equals 28 is my answer. So here you should by now know how to solve for two-step equations.